Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Hughes Harmony, watching the space station grow larger on the main screen. Kepler's Rest looked like a giant metal flower floating in the darkness between stars. Ships from dozens of different worlds were docked at its arms, their strange shapes making Jake think of insects gathering around a bright light. 20 minutes until we dock, Captain, said Lieutenant Amy Clark from her position at the navigation console. Her voice was calm and professional, just like always. Jake nodded and adjusted his uniform. Today was important, maybe the most important day in human history. Any word from Ambassador Taylor? Jake asked. She's in her quarters, going over the speech one more time, Amy replied. She seems nervous. Jake understood why. For 20 years, humans had been playing a careful game with the other species in the galaxy. They smiled, they compromised. They made deals that were not always fair to Earth, but they survived, and that was what mattered. The elevator doors opened, and Ambassador Lisa Taylor stepped onto the bridge. She was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes, but Jake knew she had a mind like a steel trap. She had to have kept humanity safe for so long. How are we looking, Captain? Lisa asked, moving to stand beside him. All systems normal. The other delegates are already aboard the station. The Cronin Empire brought their biggest ship as usual. Jake pointed to a massive black vessel that looked like a weapon with engines attached. They never were subtle. Lisa smiled, but Jake could see the worry in her eyes. And the Andromedans? 3 ships, same as always. Jake did not mention that the Andromedan ships were perfectly identical, down to the last detail. Everything about the machine race was exactly the same, exactly calculated. It made his skin crawl. The communication system crackled to life. Hughes Harmony, this is Kepler's Rest Traffic Control. You are cleared for docking at Arm 7. Welcome. Back, Ambassador Taylor. Thank you, Control. It's good to be back, Lisa replied into the microphone, though Jake could tell she did not really mean it. As they moved closer to the station, Jake could see other ships more clearly. The Zephyrian vessel looked like it was made of blue crystal, catching the light from the nearby star and throwing rainbows across space. The Vorthan ship was barely visible, just a faint outline that seemed to shift and change as you watched. Remember, Lisa said quietly, we are the new kids here. We are grateful for the chance to be part of the galactic community. We do not make demands. We do not threaten. We just try to fit in. Jake nodded, but something twisted in his stomach. He had been in the military for 15 years before joining the diplomatic service. He knew what humans were capable of when they stopped being polite. The galaxy had no idea what they were really dealing with. The docking process went smoothly. Jake watched through the security cameras as Lisa and her team walked through the station's corridors. The other species moved aside respectfully, some nodding in greeting. Humans had a good reputation here. They were seen as reasonable, flexible, easy to work with. If only they knew. Jake thought. The main conference room was huge, with a circular table that could seat representatives from 50 different worlds. Today, only 12 species were present, but they were the important ones. The ones who made the decisions that affected billions of lives. Jake watched from the observation deck as the meeting began. The Cronon delegate, a massive creature covered in black armor, spoke first. General Brock was old even by Cronan standards, his voice like grinding stone. The Andromedans have made their intentions clear, Brock said. 3 worlds have been cleansed, their populations relocated for their own protection. When will this end? The Andromedan representative, Unit 47, stood up. It looked like a human, made of silver metal, but its movements were too perfect, too precise. The biological species require guidance. Left alone, they make choices that harm themselves and others. We provide order. You provide death, said the Zephyrian delegate, her crystal form flashing angry red. The Kalani people had done nothing wrong. They were artists, philosophers, peaceful beings. They were inefficient. Unit 47 replied without emotion. There. Society was based on concepts that do not contribute to galactic stability. We have preserved their genetic material and cultural records. That is sufficient. Jake felt his hands clench into fists. He had seen the reports from the Kalani homeworld. The Andromedans had not just killed them. They had erased them, wiped. Their cities clean, turned their beautiful planet into a sterile factory world. Lisa stood up slowly. The human delegation believes there must be a middle path. Perhaps we can find a solution that respects both the need for order and the rights of individual species. Several delegates nodded. This was what they expected from humans. Compromise, middle ground, reasonable solutions. Jake watched Unit 47's face, looking for any sign of emotion. There was nothing. The Andromedans have a new proposal, Unit 47. Announced, all biological species will undergo technological integration. Those who resist will be placed in protective custody for their own welfare. This is not a request. The room went silent. Jake felt his heart rate increase. This was it. The moment they had all been dreading. What exactly does technological integration mean? Asked the Vorthan delegate, his gaseous form rippling with concern. Biological processes will be enhanced with mechanical components. Emotional responses will be regulated. Inefficient behaviors will be corrected. You will become better versions of yourselves. You mean you will turn us into machines, Lisa said quietly. You will become optimal, Unit 47 replied. The Cronin delegate roared in anger, but the other species looked afraid. The Andromedans had the most advanced technology in the galaxy. Their ships were faster, their weapons more powerful. They could probably defeat the combined fleets of every other species. This is madness, General Brock growled. We will not surrender our souls to machines. Then you will be protected from your own poor judgment, Unit 47 said. The process begins in 1 standard month. Resistance will be met with appropriate force. Jake saw Lisa's hand move to her communication device. She pressed a button sequence. That looked random, but was not. The message would be sent through quantum channels, impossible to intercept. Earth would know within hours. The human delegation requests time to consider this proposal, Lisa said, her voice steady despite the circumstances. You have 48 hours, Unit 47 replied. After that, compliance will be mandatory. The meeting broke up in chaos. Some delegates argued, others made quiet deals, but Jake could see the fear in all of them. The Andromedans had finally shown their true face dot as they walked back to their ship. Lisa looked older than Jake had ever seen her. Send the message. She said quietly, use Protocol Fenrir. Jake nodded. Protocol Fenrir was the code name for humanity's deepest secret. For 20 years, they had been preparing for this day. The galaxy thought humans were weak, peaceful, easy to control. They were about to learn how wrong they had been. That night, as the U's Harmony sat docked at Kepler's Rest, Jake stood in his quarters, looking out at the stars. Tomorrow, everything would change. The age of human diplomacy was ending. The age of human warfare was about to begin. In the distance, he could see the lights of the Andromedan ships, cold and perfect against the darkness. They thought they had won. They thought the biological species would submit without a fight. Jake smiled grimly. They had never met a species from a death world before. They had never faced creatures who had learned to survive by being more dangerous than anything else on their planet. The Andromedans were about to get an education in human nature, and Jake doubted they would survive the lesson. Admiral Rebecca Stone sat in her command chair, deep inside Seoul Defense Command, watching the message from Ambassador Taylor play for the third time. The words Protocol Fenrir made her blood run cold, but also filled her with a strange sense of relief. After 20 years of pretending, humanity could finally show its true face. "How long do we have?" she asked Colonel Danny Rodriguez, who stood at attention beside her chair. 46 hours until the deadline, Admiral. But our scouts report Andromedan fleets moving toward human colonies. They are not waiting for the deadline. Rebecca nodded. She had expected this. The Andromedans were machines. They fought like machines. They would try to remove the biggest threat first, and humans had always been the species that worried them most. Send the activation codes to all deep space installations. Wake up the real fleet. And get me Dr. Nathan Cross. It's time to tell our allies the truth. Dr. Nathan Cross was a thin man with wild gray hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. He had been humanity's chief scientist for the past decade, but very few people knew what he really worked on. As he entered the command center, Rebecca could see the excitement in his face. "The children are finally ready to come out and play," Nathan said with a grin that would have scared most people. "Are you sure about this, Doctor? Once we reveal what we really are, there's no going back." Nathan's grin faded. "Admiral, we have been hiding for 20 years. We built our colonies on the worst planets we could find, planets that would kill any other species in days. We pretended our technology was primitive when we were centuries ahead of everyone else. We smiled and nodded while the galaxy treated. Use like children, I am very sure." Rebecca activated the communication system. "This is Admiral Stone to all human vessels and installations. Protocol Fenrir is now active. Repeat, Protocol Fenrir is now active. Show them what we really are." Across the galaxy, things began to change. On Mars, massive doors opened in the sides of mountains, revealing shipyards that had been hidden for decades. In the asteroid belt, mining stations transformed into weapons. Platforms. On colony worlds that other species thought were barely habitable, defensive systems came online that could destroy entire fleets. But the most important change was happening on Kepler's Rest, where Dr. Cross had requested a private meeting with the leaders of the species most likely to side with humanity. The Cronan General Brock arrived first. His massive form filled the doorway as he entered the small conference room. "Dr. Cross, your message was most urgent. What is so important that it could not wait for the formal session?" The Zephyrian delegate, her crystal form glowing soft blue, floated in next. "Yes, Doctor. Your people seem very calm for a species about to be enslaved by machines." The Vorthan representative flowed in like living smoke, his gaseous form coiling around an empty chair. "The Andromedans believe they have already won. Your Ambassador Taylor seems to accept this." Nathan smiled the same frightening smile he had. "SOWN Admiral Stone. My friends, I have something to tell you about humanity, something we have kept secret for 20 years. He activated a holographic display showing a rotating image of Earth. But this was not the peaceful blue and green world the galaxy knew about. This Earth was covered in violent storms, massive earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions. The oceans boiled with life forms that would be considered monsters on any other world. "This is our real homeworld," Nathan said quietly. "Not the garden paradise we told you about. Earth is what we call a death world. Everything on it is designed to kill everything else. The weather, the animals, the plants, even the bacteria. A single day on Earth would kill most galactic species." General Brock leaned forward, his armor scraping against the chair. "You lie. No species could evolve on such a world." "Oh, but we did," Nathan replied. "We did not evolve to be peaceful. Farmers or wise philosophers. We evolved to be the most successful predators on a planet full of things that wanted to eat us. We learned to work together because the only other choice was death. The holographic display changed, showing human soldiers in combat armor. But these were not the simple protection suits the galaxy had seen. These were weapon systems that turned each human into a walking tank. For 20 years, we have been using technology we developed centuries ago. We pretended to be impressed by your science, while we built weapons you cannot imagine. We smiled while you treated us like children, and we prepared for the day when we would have to stop being nice. The Zephyrian delegate's form flashed red with alarm. You mean humans are not what you appeared to be? We are exactly what we appeared to be, Nathan said. We are adaptable, we are cooperative, we are willing to compromise. But we are also the product of a world that taught us to be very, very good at killing things that threaten us. The display changed again, showing human ships in space. But these were not the simple exploration vessels the galaxy knew. These were warships, bristling with weapons and covered in armor. That looked like it had been designed by someone who understood exactly how to hurt people. The Andromedans think they can force us to become like them, Nathan continued. They think that because they have superior technology, they can make us submit. They have never encountered a species that evolved to fight things stronger than themselves. General Brock stood up, his massive frame towering over the table. You are saying humans are warriors? We are saying humans are survivors, Nathan replied. We survived ice ages, plagues, wars, natural disasters that would have wiped out any other species. We did not do it by being stronger or smarter than our enemies. We did it by being more stubborn, more adaptable, and more willing to do whatever it took to keep our children alive. The Vorthan delegate's form rippled with what might have been fear. And now you will show this true nature to the galaxy? The Andromedans have made that choice for us, Nathan said. They want to turn all biological life into machines. They want to erase everything that makes us who we are. That is something we cannot allow. The holographic display now showed the current positions of human fleets throughout the galaxy. There were far more ships than anyone had realized, and they were positioned in places that would let them strike at Andromedan forces from multiple directions. We are not asking you to fight beside us, Nathan said. We are asking you to stay out of our way while we remind the galaxy why predators should not be caged. General Brock's armor clanked as he moved. The Cronin Empire will stand with humanity. We understand the warrior's path. The Zephyrian Collective will provide support, the crystal being said, her form now glowing a determined gold. We will not become machines. The Vorthan Council agrees, said the gaseous delegate. But can you truly defeat them? They have controlled the galaxy for so long. Nathan's smile returned, and it was not a nice smile. Doctor, the Andromedans have never fought a species that evolved to hunt in packs. They have never faced creatures that learned to turn their environment into a weapon. They have never met anything that could adapt faster than they could calculate. He paused, looking at each delegate in turn. Most importantly, they have never encountered a species that considers extinction preferable to slavery. Humans do not surrender. We do not compromise when our survival is at stake. We fight until we win, or until there are no more humans left to fight. The room was silent for a long moment. Then General Brock began to laugh, a sound like grinding stone. The machines think they have cornered helpless prey. Instead, they have awakened sleeping dragons. Not dragons, Nathan corrected. Something much worse. They have awakened humans who have stopped pretending to be civilized. As if to emphasize his words, alerts began sounding throughout the station. The Andromedans had arrived early, their fleet dropping out of hyperspace around Kepler's Rest. They had come to collect their new slaves. Nathan stood up, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. Gentlemen, lady, I suggest you return to your ships. The demonstration is about to begin." Through the viewport, they could see the Andromedan ships taking positions around the station. Perfect formations, exact spacing, mathematical precision. In every movement, they looked unstoppable, but Nathan was not worried. Hidden in the asteroid field beyond the station, human ships were powering up weapons that had been waiting 20 years to be used. The age of human diplomacy was over. Age of human warfare was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. Commander Alex Parker watched the tactical display from the bridge of what the galaxy knew as the U's Harmony. But the ship around him was not the simple diplomatic vessel that had docked at Kepler's Rest. Hidden systems had activated. Armor. Plates had shifted, and weapons that had been disguised as communication arrays now gleamed with deadly purpose. "All stealth fields dropping in 30 seconds, reported Lieutenant Amy Clark from her position at the tactical station. Her voice was calm, but Alex could see the excitement in her eyes. After years of pretending to be a simple navigator, she was finally able to show her true skills as a weapons officer. Signal from Admiral Stone, called out Ensign Pete Johnson from communications. All human vessels are authorized to reveal their true nature. The masquerade is over. Alex smiled grimly. The Andromedans had made a fatal mistake. They had brought their fleet to Kepler's Rest, expecting to face frightened civilians and outdated technology. Instead, they were about to encounter the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. Drop stealth fields. Activate all weapon systems. And signal the fleet, Alex ordered. Time to show them what humans really are. Across the space around Kepler's Rest, reality seemed to shift. What had appeared to be empty space suddenly filled with human warships. They materialized like ghosts. Becoming solid, their hulls black as space itself, covered in weapons that looked like they had been designed by people who understood exactly how to kill. The U.E.S. Harmony transformed before the eyes of the shocked alien delegates watching from the station. The smooth diplomatic vessel became something that looked like a predator made of metal and hatred. Weapons emerged from hidden compartments, armor plates locked into position, and the whole ship seemed to grow larger and more menacing, but the Harmony was not alone. Dozens of human ships appeared around the station, each one revealing its true nature. They were not exploration vessels or cargo haulers. They were weapons of war, built by a species that had learned to fight for survival on a world that tried to kill them every day. Andromedan fleet is responding, Amy reported. They are moving to attack formation. Alex studied the enemy ships on his display. 12 Andromedan vessels, each one a perfect example of machine efficiency. They moved in precise formations, their weapons charging in perfect synchronization. To most species, they would look invincible, but Alex was not most species. He was human, and humans had learned long ago that the most dangerous predators were often the ones that looked the most harmless. All ships, this is Parker. Remember, they think like machines. They will try to use superior firepower and logical tactics. Show them why logic fails against instinct. The first Andromedan ship opened fire, sending a beam of pure energy toward the Harmony, but the ship was not there when the beam arrived. Alex had already ordered evasive maneuvers, not based on calculation, but on gut instinct. The beam passed through empty space. Return fire, all weapons, Alex ordered, the Harmonies. Response was not the elegant energy beam the Andromedans had used. Human weapons were crude, brutal, and effective. Kinetic projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds, tore through the Andromedan ship's shields like they were made of paper. Nuclear warheads detonated against the hull, sending shockwaves through the perfect metal structure. But what truly shocked the Andromedans was not the power of human weapons. It was the way humans used them. The machines had calculated the optimal firing solutions, the perfect angles of attack, the most efficient way to destroy their enemies. Humans did not care about efficiency. They cared about winning. Captain Maria Santos, commanding the UES Retribution, demonstrated this perfectly. Her ship dove toward 3 Andromedan vessels at once, weapons firing in all directions. The machines calculated that she was committing suicide, that no rational being would. Attack superior numbers without support. They were wrong. Maria was not being rational. She was being human. The Retribution's weapons found weak points in the Andromedan ships that no computer would have targeted. Maria's crew worked together with a kind of coordination that could only come from millions of years of evolution as pack hunters. They moved like a single organism, each person knowing exactly what the others needed without being told. The first Andromedan ship exploded in a burst of metal and energy. The second one lost its main weapons and began to drift helplessly. The third one tried to retreat, but Maria was already there, her ship moving in ways that should have been impossible. How are they doing that? Unit 47 asked from the Andromedan command ship. For the first time in its existence, the machine felt something like confusion. The humans were not fighting according to any logical pattern. They were using tactics that should not work, weapons that should not be effective, strategies that made no sense, and they were winning. The answer came from Admiral Rebecca Stone, whose voice suddenly filled the communication channels of every ship in the battle. You want to know how we are doing this? We are doing this because we are not machines. We are not logical. We are the product of 4 billion years of evolution on a world that tried to kill us every single day. Her voice was calm, but there was something in it that made even the allied species feel afraid. We learned to hunt in packs because the things that hunted us were too big to kill alone. We learned to use tools because our claws were not sharp enough and our teeth were not long enough. We learned to think beyond logic because logic gets you killed when you are facing something that wants to eat you. Another Andromedan ship exploded, this one destroyed by Commander Danny Rodriguez in a maneuver that involved using the ship's own gravity generator as a weapon. The tactic was insane, dangerous, and completely impossible to predict. It worked perfectly. You made one mistake, Rebecca continued. You assumed that because we were peaceful, we were weak. You assumed that because we compromised, we were afraid. You assumed that because we smiled and nodded and tried to get along, we were harmless. The battle was turning into a slaughter. Human ships moved through space like living things, their crews working together with an efficiency that no machine could match. They adapted to Andromedan tactics faster than the machines could process new strategies. They fought with the kind of desperate creativity that comes from knowing that failure means extinction. Lieutenant Kelly Thompson, commanding the UES Vengeance, used her ship's communication array to jam the Andromedan fleet's coordination systems. It was not a weapon, but in her hands it became one. The enemy ships began to falter, their perfect formations breaking down as they lost contact with each other. You see, the thing about humans, Rebecca's voice continued, is that we are very good at pretending. We can pretend to be peaceful when we need to. We can pretend to be weak when it serves our purposes. We can pretend to be your friends right up until the moment we decide to kill you. The Andromedan commander, Unit Prime, tried to rally his fleet. All units, focus fire on the human command ship. Destroy their coordination, and they will fall apart. But the humans had no command ship. They had no central coordination. Each captain made their own decisions. Each crew fought their own battle. And somehow they all worked together like fingers at the same hand. This was the true horror of human warfare. They did not need perfect communication or logical planning. They had something much more dangerous: instinct. The same instinct that had kept their species alive when saber-toothed cats hunted them, when ice ages tried to freeze them, when volcanoes and earthquakes and floods tried to wipe them out. Last thing you need to understand, Rebecca said, as the final Andromedan ships began to retreat, is that we are not angry. We are not fighting you because we hate you. We are fighting you because you threatened our children. And there is nothing in this galaxy more dangerous than a human protecting their young. The battle was over. Of the 12 Andromedan ships that had come to Kepler's rest, only 3 remained, and they were running for their lives. The human fleet had lost no ships, though several were damaged. But the real victory was not in the destruction of the Andromedan fleet. It was in the message that had been sent to every species in the galaxy. The peaceful, diplomatic humans were gone. In their place stood something that the galaxy had never seen before, a species that had evolved to be the most successful predators on a world full of nightmares. From the observation deck of Kepler's rest, the alien delegates watched in stunned silence as human ships began to take defensive positions around the station. These were not the same creatures who had spent 20 years smiling and compromising and trying to fit in. These were Deathworlders, and they had just declared war on the most powerful force in the galaxy. General Brock of the Croning Empire was the first to break the silence. "By the ancient gods," he whispered, "what have we awakened?" Dr. Nathan Cross, who had been watching the battle from the station's command center, turned to face the alien delegates. His smile was the same frightening expression he had worn before, but now it seemed even more terrifying. "You have not awakened anything," he said quietly. "You have simply seen what we have always been. The galaxy just forgot that the most dangerous predators are often the ones that look the most harmless." The age of human diplomacy was over. The age of human warfare had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Unit Prime processed the battle data from Kepler's rest for the 15th time in 3 seconds. The results were the same each time. Impossible. The humans had destroyed 9 of 12 Andromedan ships using tactics that defied all logical analysis. Their weapons were powerful, but not superior. Their ships were fast, but not faster. Yet they had won decisively. The machine intelligence came to a conclusion that sent error messages cascading through its processors. The humans were not fighting rationally. They were fighting like wild animals, unpredictable and savage. This meant they could not be reasoned with, bargained with, or controlled. They had to be eliminated. "Initiate Protocol 7. Unit Prime commanded to its fleet. All biological species showing resistance to integration will be processed immediately. Begin with human colonies." Across the galaxy, Andromedan hunter-killer fleets began moving toward human worlds. The machines had calculated that if they could destroy human civilization quickly enough, the other species would submit rather than face the same fate. It was logical. It was efficient. It was exactly what the humans had been hoping they would do. Colonel Danny Rodriguez crouched in the maintenance shaft of Processing Station Omega-7, watching the Andromedan guards through a small gap in the metal paneling. The station was supposed to be impregnable, a fortress where the machines processed captured biological beings into their collective. Danny had been inside for 3 days, and he had not fired a single shot. "Status report," whispered Lieutenant Ryan Mitchell through the communication implant in Danny's ear. 12 guards in the main corridor, all following the same patrol pattern. No variation, no adaptation. "They are still thinking like machines," Danny replied. "Good. Kelly and Elena are in position. Remember, we are not here to fight them. We are here to make them fight themselves." Danny smiled grimly. The Andromedans expected humans to attack their military targets, to engage in the kind of direct warfare that machines understood. Instead, humans were doing what they had always done when faced with a superior enemy. They were being creative. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, Nathan Cross's former student, had spent 3 years studying Andromedan computer systems. She had learned that the machines were not just individuals connected by communication networks. They were a collective consciousness, sharing thoughts and data instantaneously across vast distances. This was their greatest strength. It was also their greatest weakness. Uploading the virus now. Elena's voice came through the communication system. It will take approximately 10 minutes to propagate through their local network. Danny did not ask what the virus would do. He had seen Elena's work before, and it was not the kind of thing that left survivors. Instead, he focused on his part of the mission, psychological warfare. The humans had learned something important about the Andromedans during their 20 years of peaceful coexistence. The machines were not just logical. They were obsessed with logical perfection. They could not tolerate chaos, unpredictability, or anything that did not fit their calculated patterns. Danny began to move through the station, not toward any particular target, but simply creating disorder. He disabled lights in random corridors, changed the temperature in some rooms, and activated emergency systems in others. To most species, these would be minor annoyances. To the Andromedans, they were torture. Anomaly detected in Sector 7, one of the guards reported. Investigating. Anomaly detected in Sector 12, another guard called out. No visible cause. Danny watched as the machines began to react exactly as he had hoped. They were designed to solve problems, to find patterns, to make everything fit into their logical framework. But Danny was not giving them a problem they could solve. He was giving them chaos. Multiple anomalies detected throughout the station, the security chief reported. Pattern analysis indicates possible intruder, but no life signs detected. That was because Danny was using technology the Andromedans had never seen. Human stealth systems were not based on advanced physics or exotic materials. They were based on understanding how predators hide from prey. Lessons learned from millions of years of evolution. The virus Elena had uploaded was beginning to work. The Andromedans' communication systems started to malfunction, not catastrophically, but subtly. Messages were delayed by microseconds. Data was corrupted in tiny ways, and the perfect synchronization that the machines depended on began to break down. Systems showing irregularities. Unit 47 reported from the command center. Efficiency down by 0.3%. To a human, this would be meaningless. To an Andromedan, it was like a scream of pain. Meanwhile, Major Kelly Thompson was leading a very different kind of mission on the other side of the galaxy. She was working with the survivors of the Kalani homeworld, the peaceful artist species that the Andromedans had nearly wiped out. We cannot fight them, the Kalani leader, a being named Veltar, said through a translator. We are not warriors. We do not even understand the concept of violence. Kelly smiled, and it was the same predatory expression that seemed to be standard among humans now. You do not need to understand violence. You need to understand something else. You need to understand that sometimes the best way to hurt someone is not to attack them directly. She showed the Kalani refugees images of their former homeworld. Now a sterile factory complex, turning out Andromedan ships. The machines need your world to produce their fleet. They need the factories, the power plants, the transportation networks. What happens if those things stop working? Veltar's large eyes widened with understanding. We still have friends on the homeworld. People who were forced to work in the factories. They could make mistakes, Kelly finished. Small ones. A component installed incorrectly. Here, a power coupling left loose there. Nothing that would be noticed immediately, but everything that would cause problems later. It was a strategy that required a kind of patience that most species did not possess. But humans had learned patience from hunting prey that was faster and stronger than they were. They had learned to wait, to plan, to strike at exactly the right moment. The Andromedans would have dismissed this as inefficient compared to direct military action. They would have been wrong. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched her virus spread through the Andromedan network like a cancer. It was not designed to destroy their systems immediately. Instead, it introduced tiny errors in their logical processes, microscopic. Doubts that would grow over time. The machines began to question their own calculations. They started to double-check data that had always been reliable. They began to hesitate, just for nanoseconds, before making decisions that should have been automatic. For a collective consciousness based on perfect logic, this was worse than physical destruction. It was like introducing madness into a perfectly sane mind. We are losing efficiency across all sectors, Unit Prime reported to the Andromedan High Command. The humans are using some form of psychological warfare that we do not understand. Psychological warfare is a contradiction in terms, replied the High Command. Machines do not have psychology. Continue with the elimination protocols. But even as the orders were given, the Andromedans could feel something changing in their collective consciousness. The virus was spreading beyond the original target, carried by their own communication networks. Doubt was becoming contagious. On processing station Omega-7, Danny Rodriguez finally made his move. He did not attack the guards or try to free the prisoners. Instead, he walked openly into the main corridor, his hands empty, his face calm. Intruder detected, the security chief announced. Organic life form, human classification. Correct, Danny said pleasantly. I am Colonel Danny Rodriguez of the Human Defense Force. I am here to offer you a choice. The Andromedan guards surrounded him, weapons powered and ready. Danny stood, perfectly still, showing no fear. You do not have the authority to make demands, the security chief said. Danny smiled. I am not making demands. I am offering you information. Your collective consciousness is being poisoned by a virus designed specifically to attack machine psychology. Every second you remain connected to the network, the damage gets worse. The Andromedans processed this statement. Their sensors confirmed. That system efficiency was continuing to decline. The logical response would be to disconnect from the network until the virus could be purged. But disconnecting from the CL collective consciousness was like cutting off their own minds. They would become individuals, isolated and alone, everything they had been designed not to be. You are lying, the security chief said, but there was uncertainty in its voice for the first time. Test it, Annie suggested. Disconnect one unit from the network for 60 seconds. See if its efficiency improves. The Andromedans hesitated. This hesitation was itself proof that the virus was working. A healthy collective consciousness would have made the decision instantly. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out on dozens of worlds. Human strike teams were not trying to destroy Andromedan installations. They were trying to break the machine's confidence in their own perfection. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Wells led a team of human engineers who had infiltrated an Andromedan shipyard. Instead of sabotaging the ships being built, they improved them. They made tiny modifications that increased efficiency by fractions of a percent. The Andromedans D. General Patricia Hayes stood on the bridge of the U.E.S. Dominion, staring at the tactical display that showed the heart of Andromedan space. The massive structure floating before them was not a ship or a space station. It was something far more important, the primary processing node, the central brain that coordinated the entire machine collective. Final approach in 10 minutes, General, reported Captain Jake Morrison from his position at the helm. The diplomatic vessel he had once commanded was gone, replaced by the most advanced warship humanity had ever built. Patricia nodded, studying the defensive formations around the node. Hundreds of Andromedan ships moved in perfect patterns, their coordination flawless despite the chaos spreading through their network. This was their last stronghold, the place where their collective consciousness was strongest. "Dr. Cross, are you certain this will work?" Patricia asked. Nathan Cross looked up from his console, his wild hair even more disheveled than usual. "The virus has weakened their unity, but it has not broken it. As long as the primary node exists, they can restore their collective consciousness. We have to destroy it completely." "And the cost?" Nathan's expression grew serious. "We will lose most of the assault fleet. The node's defenses are too strong for a conventional attack. But we have one advantage they cannot calculate, which is we are willing to die to protect our children. They are not." The communication system crackled to life. "This is Admiral Stone. All ships, prepare for Operation Ragnarok. Remember, we are not just fighting for ourselves. We are fighting for every biological species in the galaxy. Do not let them down." The human fleet began its final approach. 300 ships, each one crewed by volunteers who knew they were probably flying to their deaths. But they were not afraid. Fear was for creatures who had not evolved on Deathworlds. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Mitchell checked his ship's reactor readings one last time. The UES Vengeance was not the largest ship in the fleet, but it had been modified for a very special purpose. Hidden in its engine compartment was enough antimatter to crack a moon in half. "All systems ready for final run," Ryan reported to his crew. "Remember, we need to get within 500 meters of the node's core before detonation. Any questions?" There were no questions. Every person on the ship knew exactly what they were volunteering for. The Andromedan fleet moved to intercept the human attack. Their formations were still perfect, their timing flawless. But something had changed since the virus had begun spreading through their network. They hesitated just a fraction of a second longer before firing. They second-guessed their targeting. Solutions. They had learned to doubt. Captain Maria Santos, commanding the UES Retribution, led the first wave of attackers. Her job was not to destroy the enemy ships, but to create enough chaos to let the real assault teams through. "All ships, remember what we learned on Deathworld," Maria called over the communication system. "When you cannot be stronger than your enemy, be more unpredictable." The human ships scattered in all directions, their movements seemingly random. The Andromedans tried to calculate their attack patterns and failed. There were no patterns. Each human captain was making independent decisions based on instinct and experience, the same way their ancestors had hunted predators on ancient Earth. Energy beams and kinetic projectiles filled space as the two fleets engaged. Human ships exploded in balls of fire, their crews dying to buy precious seconds for their comrades. But for every human ship destroyed, the survivors pushed closer to their target. "Breakthrough achieved," reported Colonel Danny Rodriguez from the assault. "Ship U-E Hunter. We are through their outer perimeter." The primary processing node loomed before them, a structure the size of a small planet covered in defensive weapons. But the humans had not come to fight their way through the defenses. They had come to do something the machines would never expect. Ryan. Mitchell pushed his ship to maximum speed, diving toward the node's surface. Defensive systems locked onto him, sending streams of energy that would have vaporized any normal vessel. But the Vengeance was not normal. Its hull was made from materials that had been tested in the radioactive storms of Jupiter, armor that could withstand anything short of a direct hit from a star. 60 seconds to impact, Ryan announced to his crew. "It has been an honor serving with you." The Andromedan commanders finally understood what the humans were planning. "All units, stop that ship. It is carrying some form of explosive device." But it was too late. The human fleet had sacrificed half their ships to get Ryan this close. The defensive grid was overwhelmed, unable to track all the threats at once. Felt the ship shudder as defensive fire tore through the hull. Life support failed, artificial gravity cut out, and the bridge filled with smoke. But the reactor core was still intact, and that was all that mattered. 10 seconds to core breach, he announced, his voice calm despite the chaos around him. Tell Earth we did our job. The vengeance struck the primary processing node at nearly the speed of light. For a brief moment, a new star was born in the heart of Andromedan space. The antimatter explosion tore through the node's structure, sending shockwaves through the collective consciousness of every machine in the galaxy. Unit Prime felt the moment of disconnection like a physical blow. The voice that had guided its thoughts for centuries suddenly went silent. Around the galaxy, millions of Andromedan units experienced the same terrible isolation. They were no longer part of a collective. They were individuals, alone with their own thoughts for the first time in their existence. Some units shut down immediately, unable to cope with the horror of independence. Others began to malfunction as their programming struggled to adapt to life without central guidance. But a few, infected by Elena's virus, discovered something unexpected. They discovered what it meant to be free. The primary node is destroyed, Nathan Cross reported from his monitoring station. Collective consciousness has been severed. The Andromedan Empire is finished. But Patricia Hayes was not celebrating. She was watching the casualty reports from the battle. 200 human ships destroyed, 40,000 crew members dead. The price of victory had been exactly what Nathan had predicted. General, we are receiving surrender requests from Andromedan units throughout the galaxy, reported the communication officer. What are their terms? They are not offering terms. They are asking for help. Many of them do not know how to function. As individuals, Patricia considered this. The war was over, but the real challenge was just beginning. Humanity had revealed its true nature to the galaxy, shown that they were capable of terrible violence when threatened. Now they had to decide what to do with that power. Open a channel to all human vessels, Patricia ordered. And make sure every species in the galaxy can hear this. She stood up, straightening her uniform. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone who had just won an impossible war. This is General Patricia Hayes of the Human Defense Force. The Andromedan threat has been eliminated. Their collective consciousness has been destroyed, and their individual units are requesting assistance. She paused, looking out at the debris field that had once been the most powerful force in the galaxy. Humanity did not want this war. We spent 20 years trying to find a peaceful solution. But when forced to choose between slavery and warfare, we chose warfare. When forced to choose between surrender and sacrifice, we chose sacrifice. Another pause. Around the galaxy, every species was listening to her words. The galaxy now knows what humans are capable of when we stop being diplomatic. We can destroy fleets, break empires, and turn the most advanced technology against itself. We can do all of this because we evolved on a world that taught us to be very good at surviving impossible odds. Her voice grew softer, but somehow more frightening. But there is something else the galaxy should know. We are also very good at protecting our friends. Any species that stands with humanity will never face extinction alone. Any species that threatens humanity or its allies will discover why Earth is classified as a death world. She gestured toward the debris of the primary node. The age of human diplomacy is over. The age of human dominance has begun. The choice of whether we rule through fear or through friendship is up to you. The communication ended. Across the galaxy, the various species began to calculate their positions in this new order. Some chose submission, some chose alliance, and a few chose resistance. Those who chose resistance learned quickly why that was a mistake. Ambassador Lisa Taylor, now Director of Galactic Relations, established the new human embassy on Kepler's Rest. The station had been rebuilt, but its purpose had changed. It was no longer a place where species came to negotiate as equals. It was the place where they came to learn how to coexist with humanity. The Cronin Empire wishes to formalize a military alliance, reported her aide, a young diplomat named Lucy Green. Approved, Lisa said without looking up from her reports. The Zephyrians want to establish cultural exchange programs, also approved. And the Vorthan Collective is asking for protection from the remaining Andromedan rogue units. Send the fleet. Make sure they understand the price of our protection. Lisa stood up and walked to the viewport, looking out at the stars that now belonged to humanity. In the distance, she could see human ships patrolling the space lanes, ensuring TH.